What's up, everyone? Dr. Delweiler from Hybrid Performance Group. I am live today, actually, in our awesome hybrid recovery room. I just got done training today, so I'm jumping on our recovery pumps, trying to get my recovery on here. Recovery pumps are pretty awesome, especially after doing something like a bike sprint as a finisher, like I just did. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of reach out to you guys. First and foremost, definitely got to apologize for not following through on my word and doing the live on Sunday. We had a bunch of different events occur that kind of messed up the timing of everything. So unfortunately, it wasn't able to happen. Basically, I was teaching Reflexive Performance Reset all weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, we had that seminar, which is awesome. Had a lot of good people, met a lot of good people. Every time I teach that course, it's awesome because I always learn more. But during all that mess, there was a bunch of training times that kept changing, and actually ended up working out to go ahead and get done with the seminar at 5 o'clock on Sunday and go train at 6 up at Elite FTS. So I took that opportunity and decided to push back the nutrition talk a couple days. So I apologize for that again. So yeah, I mean, got a couple minutes here. Timer set for 30 minutes on this the recovery boot, so got plenty of time to go through some of the tips I want to go through with the nutrition side of things, like I had said. So definitely think after the last week's talk with the nutrition information that we covered, that this would be a pretty good opportunity to go by, and especially in the upcoming months here, everyone's going to have enjoy themselves for the holidays and probably end up have a few people looking at a New Year's resolution, trying to maybe make a little bit of a life change, try to lose a little weight or something like that, try to change their diet, eat cleaner, or whatever it may have you. And definitely one of the hardest things about nutrition, I don't like calling it dieting because it assumes that right off the bat everyone here is dieting and they think it's gonna suck. That'll be awful. That it won't be anything that'll be worthwhile or fun. It already puts a negative connotation in people's head. Plus, on top of that, dieting implies that it's going to end. And realistically speaking, if you're only going to put it in a couple months worth of time and then expect that to just be able to go back to what you were doing, it's not really going to work out too well. So when we are talking about nutrition, it's more of a lifestyle change. So with these nutrition tips, one of the biggest things that people run into is not being able to follow through or make those changes. And I think some of these nutrition tips are going to be really helpful for those that are looking to make some changes, or basically just kind of understand maybe nutrition a little better, or tips for making that plan actually turn into more of a lifestyle and not just a 3-month fad and then going back to what you're doing. So let's say that person decided you want to clean up your eating habits and get on a plan to clean up your nutrition. So these are just some tips that I've kind of pulled away for the last, I would say, almost a decade worth of either doing my own nutrition or having someone else do my nutrition for me. I think both are beneficial. I think both allow you to learn a lot about your body and about how the body works in the process and what works for you. So between my own nutrition, my reading up on that nutrition, and then some of the people I've worked with in the past and currently, these are some of the very, very consistent across the board tips that I think are very helpful that people may not know. So tip number one, like I said, being in it for the long haul. It's dieting. A nutrition change is a lifestyle. It's not just going on a diet to lean up for the summer and then go back into whatever crappy habits you did have that are going to bring you back to where you were in the first place. I think that's probably the biggest negative connotation on nutrition. I remember it was funny when I was everyone's talking about like keto dieting and all this shit, like low carb dieting and all that stuff. Like I remember when I was in 6th grade and 7th grade, and I was on like the Atkins diet. I did that when I was in 7th grade, and then I remember we had like a biology teacher that we were in class, and she was literally sitting there like bashing the Atkins diet. She was like, "Oh, that's so stupid," and everyone that always does it, like gains all the weight back and stuff, and I just remember laughing because I was like, I mean, I don't know, it worked pretty well for me. I lost 50 pounds, and that's what actually allowed me to begin to play football at a you know, a positive or a competitive level when I ended up getting into from 8th grade, actually. Sorry, from 8th grade is when I started. From 8th grade to 9th grade, I never played a snap of football up until that point when I was able to do some of those things. So, like, to me, it was always just funny, that negative connotation on, like, oh, well, diets don't ever work because everyone just always gains it back. And it's like, well, yeah, if all you're looking to do is change yourself for a couple months and then expect that to somehow take care of the year's worth of, you know, crappy eating or bad habits, you know, not taking anything away from that experience and learn from it, I don't know what you expect is going to happen. So, you know, be in it for the long haul, which means don't try to go too fast on stuff, and be willing to, like, have ups and downs, right? So it's interesting because I just got done with a cut, and now I'm kind of working my way back to, you know, rebound a little bit. So, like, I went down from, I think it was like 270 all the way down to like 227. That's about the lowest I've been for a long time. And again, like, right, I mean, I'm in it for the long haul. I've been doing it for almost 10 years, and it's not as if, like, it's linear, right? You kind of work your way through it as you go. But, you know, don't be afraid sliding in this reverse that I'm doing, this rebound, you know, like, right away, like, I gained a crap ton of weight back. Well, don't freak out. I mean, there's reasons for that. But again, just kind of seeing it in the long term, like, even if I did mess up and do something, you know, for 2-3 months, or like the holidays, right? Like, let's say you're doing well on a diet already and you're worried about the holidays. Like, what am I going to do for the holidays? You know, it's one of those things where, you know what? So what? If you have a couple weeks where you go off the rails a little bit, like, just try to be, you know, as consistent as possible. But if you go off the rails for a little bit, it's not like it's the end of the world, and all of a sudden you need to kick the entire plan out and think you completely lost all your progress. So those are all just little, you know, little things to think about. You know, look at that process, even if it's just like, you know, if it helps to make you relax more about the process. Just think of it as, like, you know, maybe instead of thinking you got 5 months, think you have 5 years. You know, because in general, like, I think most people, if you ask them if all they were going to do is lose a pound a week, would they be happy about that? Maybe, maybe not. But if you said, well, if you average, you know, a pound, or let's say even half a pound a week over an entire year, that's, you know, 25 pounds, right? It's 26 pounds. So looking at it in the long term, instead of getting frustrated at little bits and pieces, you know, in a short term, week by week period, look at it as long haul. Even if you average a half pound a week, right, you're going to lose 20 some pounds over a year. So that's definitely something that I hope kind of gives some people a little bit more ease on that situation, because I know it can be tough on those ends. So tip number 2 is kind of like I already talked about a little bit, but just be consistent and compliant. And then on that, like, on the other end of it, you know, and then be prepared to make a mistake or two, but understand you can bounce back from it. So, like, again, with it being a lifestyle, nothing's going to be perfect. Nothing's perfect in life, and nothing's going to be perfect in any kind of nutrition planning, or just in general when you're trying to make a change. You know, let's say all you can do is cut out maybe 1 or 2 things because you're not quite ready to go from, you know, cold turkey, just cut out everything. Even just keeping some sort of consistency there. If you cut out one thing and then got that completely cut out of your life, and then cut out another thing and got that completely out of your life, just staying consistent with what's going to be super important on that. Oh man, what's up, JP? JP, I don't know if you're going to be down for this. Let you in? Oh fuck, JP, you're here like a whole 30 minutes early, or an hour early. I gotta cut off my damn boots to come get you. Oh man, hold on, JP, I got you. 15. You're here at 3:30, my guy. That's what I got you listed here with Devi at 3:30. I'm coming right now. All right, hold on, guys. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. Sorry. I swear to God, this time I'm actually going to finish the talk. Yeah, so it was my bad. I actually, JP was coming in to get some recovery room as well. So I thought he was coming in at 3:30. Thought I had plenty of time. Nope, 3 o'clock. So, I did want to finish these quick couple tips. We just we're getting through tip number two, getting into tip number two when we kind of had to cut it short there. So I just got done with patients today. I'm good to go. No more interruptions. So we're going to blast through that, that last couple tips here. So the tip number two is basically all about being consistent and being compliant. And again, kind of what we had talked about before, with a lot of misconceptions about dieting is it's supposed to be some like short-term situation. Hey, 3 months, I'll get in and get out, and I'll go back to what I want to do. But realistically, it's supposed to be more of a lifestyle change, right? That was tip number one. So that builds on, because it's a lifestyle change, like, guess what? Like, stuff's going to happen. You're going to make a few mistakes. Things are going to not be ideal at all times, and that's not really necessarily the point. The point is, in something like this, is to have success and have consistency over time. And to illustrate that, let's say you are someone who takes the recommendation of having 5 or 6 meals a day, right? We talked about that last week on the general basics of why you have meals that often. So let's say you have 5 or 6 meals a day, right? So by doing the math, if we look at that, that is essentially the way I look at it. That is somewhere between, if it's 5 meals, it's 35 meals in a week. If it's 6 meals, it's 42 meals in a week. So those are between 35 and 42 opportunities for you either to do the right thing or the wrong thing. So when we talk about consistency, breaking that down and talking about consistency makes a little more sense when we look at the actual numbers, because all we really need to have success in a plan, as long as the plan is correct, all we need to have success is have somewhere above 90% compliancy or 90% consistency. So, out of 42 meals or 35 meals, that allows you to make a couple mistakes, 3 or 4 meals out of the week, where maybe you either don't get them in or you mess up and, within reason, eat a little bit too much. That's okay. And it's really more about staying compliant, staying consistent over a long period of time. So, with that too, like, even in that consistency part, a good plan of action, a good nutrition plan, is going to include cheat meals, and we're going to do a whole nother live on cheat meals and what they're used for. But again, having a long-term outlook, tip number one, looking at it in the long term, and then tip number two, having consistency, allows you to go into a situation where, like, look at it this way: if I've done the work and I've been good all year, or for the last month or last couple weeks, you can go into a Christmas time or a holiday time, New Year's, and be like, you know what, it's okay if I'm a little bit inconsistent, more than usual, because I've been consistent. Look at it that way. Look at it in the macro level of, if I've been consistent 11 months out of 12, that allows me to have a little bit more leeway. Maybe in December things are 50% compliance, but in every other month you're above 90%. You're still going to get somewhere in the long term. So that's really when it comes down to it. Like, looking at things in that mindset, having that tip to help you out is going to make it a lot maybe better to swallow up it, or to handle that kind of stigma that people typically deal with when they're talking about different nutrition or, like I said, dieting plans. So the last tip is preparation, and this is probably going to be to make the first 2 tips actually stick. Preparation is going to be the biggest advantage or disadvantage you're going to give yourself if you aren't doing it correctly. So what preparation means is being able to plan ahead of time. It doesn't necessarily mean meal prep, and it definitely has a lot to do with, the most efficient way to prepare is by prepping everything before you start the week. But even just having a plan of, what am I going to do when I find myself in a situation where I don't have my meal with me, or I don't maybe have that replacement shake that we talked about last week with me. What are some ways I can keep myself from derailing, right? What are ways that I can keep myself consistent and being prepared for them? Because what a lot of people make and have mistakes of is they just kind of go throughout their day without planning, and then all of a sudden they're in a situation where their back's kind of against the wall. And if you haven't planned, or don't have a plan for how you're going to deal with when you don't have that meal ready for you, you can, especially when your body's already going in a state where it's being used to getting fed, every 2 to 3 hours. All of a sudden you go 5 or 6 hours, and man, you are ravenous. So it's very easy in that standpoint to just go off the walls and go get something like a burger because it's quick and convenient, right? So preparation really being all around and just having that plan. So there's definitely a lot of different ways that you can, for me, like if I'm traveling a lot for seminars, I'm teaching seminars in different cities, sometimes even different countries. Like that's a really big stressor, something you have to kind of have a plan for. So knowing what grocery stores to go to, or where you can get easy sources of good whole foods, or what certain restaurants have different options you can kind of select from to get what you need. Those are all really good ways of preparing yourself, because eventually, like I said, life's going to happen. You're going to have stuff come up. It's having a preparation plan to be able to address those are going to be really important. So having said that, the meal planning really is the best way to plan. I know it gets a bad stigma as well, but I mean, as long as you're not the most picky eater in the world, like it's very actually nice to be able to have a lot of extra time to not have to worry about what meal you're going to make, because you already did that ahead of time. You already planned out ahead of time, and now you just, in the morning you grab your meals, throw them in something cooler, take them to work or take them to your office, whatever setting you're in, throw them in the fridge and microwave, and you're good to go. It actually makes your life a lot easier if you're planning ahead of time, because it's just one less thing on your plate. No pun intended there, I guess. But anyways, so that's kind of the last tip there. And really just, like I said, they all kind of bleed into each other. And typically what happens, so like to put that all together, right? So someone doesn't prepare correctly, and then maybe they go to work, or they're rushed in the morning because they didn't prepare those meals beforehand, or they didn't want to take the time to wake up just a little bit earlier, whatever it might be, right? So they go to work and they go, oh, it's okay. I only have 2 meals planned, so I'm supposed to have 4 by the end of the time I get home, or 5 by the time I get home, but it's okay, I'll just make it through, I'll push through. Well, even in a standpoint that you don't make a bad decision from the standpoint of like, okay, I'm going to stop at McDonald's in the middle of the day because I'm so hungry, or on my way home because I'm so hungry. Even if you do that, you're putting yourself in a situation where you probably get home and you're trying to overeat because your body's now starving and it hasn't had those nutrients earlier in the day. On top of that, if you remember why we use protein as often as we do, it's to fuel muscle growth. So if we're in a situation that we're not applying or not going to have protein available to our body, then again, that we're falling back behind on our plan, which is even if you're trying to just lose fat or gain muscle, you're still putting yourself behind, because we're not supporting those by having protein in your system. So those are the 3 tips. Like I said, oh, awesome, Devi downstairs, and our office manager, Janice, says hi. Awesome. Yeah, I'm in my office right now trying to finish this up for you guys. So, to conclude with that, those are 3 really easy tips. There's plenty of other tips, plenty of other things that you either can learn the easy way or the hard way, or just it takes time to learn, but that are going to help you be successful, especially, again, once we get to this New Year's and getting through that and all the new resolutions we're going to be having coming up. There's definitely a lot more tips to come. Those are just the big 3 that kind of hit me from talking through some processes with a couple of different people that I think were really important to address. So we'll kind of see how it goes this next week. I am kind of thinking that I might go into the cheat meal talk here this next week. It may not be a bad idea, especially since we're coming up to Christmas. And I know for me, like, I think we're doing Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are going to be more family, like big meal type. Oh my God, there's all this food scenarios. So maybe we'll talk about some cheat meal options, how you can utilize a cheat meal, how you can actually make that your a family meal like that advantageous for you if you're already in a good nutrition and a good workout program. So we'll do that. I think we'll pull that together here on Saturday or Sunday. I'll try to let you guys know, and I will stick to it this time. I swear to God, I will not let something come up. I won't have gigantic ass JP banging on the front door because I messed up his scheduling before I started. But yeah, we'll go over some of those things, because I definitely think this is one of those times of years where people people tend to what ends up happening is people tend to they make a mistake or they derail a little bit and they get all worried about like, oh my god, you just ruined the whole last 6 months or 12 months, and they don't think about that consistency, right? Or they don't think about that long haul mindset to where they'll get through these holidays and either one of two things happen. Either they just completely derail and they feel like shit and they just completely jump off the wagon, period, and stop worrying about it or stop caring, or then they get back into the New Year's and they get overly aggressive with everything because they're freaking out about, oh my god, like, you know, I gained whatever amount of weight over, you know, Christmas and whatnot. So I think it's a great time to talk about nutrition, because I think it's really not as complicated as it seems. It's just, again, being able to prepare, being able to understand the compliance and consistency part. You know, again, if you have 2 days out of 7 with the family, and you can somehow split that up where only 2, 3, 4 meals are not, you know, are going to be off, then hey, you're actually really not doing anything wrong, period, as long as everything else is on track. And on top of that, like I said, if you spent, it's 2 weeks out of the whole entire year. If you were pretty damn good for 48, 50 weeks out of the year, guess what? Go have fun. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? So we'll see you guys before Christmas. So I'll wait to say Merry Christmas until then. But hope everyone enjoyed the talk. And like I said, apologize for it being so all over the place this week. But we'll get back on track this next week. All right, later, guys.